In today's video, we are going to be going over a phenomenon where people are so broke they are financing alcohol. Hi everyone, my name is Helen. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're going to go over a situation where people are so broke that they are now financing alcohol. When it comes to this topic, it's a little bit complicated, but it's important to recognize that this is not a financial situation that you want to find yourself in, and it's important to understand what the pitfalls are to avoid them. So if you like this kind of content, please do like and subscribe since it does help the channel. Thank you guys so much. Let's just jump right into it. The first thing you need to know when it comes to this subject is that roughly 22.2% of people are currently financing alcoholic beverages, and they're using a buy now, pay later process, which that's particularly hard on them because they're not only financing the alcohol, they're paying interest on it, and they're setting themselves up for a situation where they're not able to get their finances back in order. Now, 22% of people financing alcohol is a very large portion. That's a little bit more than 1 in 5 people. If you really think about it, that's particularly detrimental not only to their mental health, but also their physical health and their finances. The thing with this particular topic is that when they're buying in a buy now, pay later scheme, what they're really doing is buying in small quantities, but they're still drinking and consuming alcohol at the same rate. So they're ending up in a situation where they're paying more for the alcohol itself. They're also taking out basically debt in order to buy the alcohol, and then they're finding their financial situation keeps getting worse and worse, and the hole keeps getting bigger and bigger, particularly in the topic when it comes to alcohol. The second point when it comes to this particular topic is that buy now, pay later is not the only scheme. Credit card purchases for alcohol are also a growing problem. About 30% of people are buying alcoholic beverages on credit, but only a small percentage of those people are actually paying everything off before interest accrues. That means that they are buying alcohol with either buy now, pay later or a credit card, and they're accruing interest over time. Now, in the case of credit cards in particular, the interest rates are very high. The average credit card has a 15 to 29.99% interest rate. So if you're looking at 15 to 30% interest on buying a bottle of wine or a 6-pack of beer, or any other kind of alcoholic beverage, that adds up very quickly. You're adding an extra 15 to 30% on that purchase. So you're adding extra costs to yourself. And then if you're buying a buy now, pay later, you're also setting yourself up for even further interest. So it really builds up over time. The third point to keep in mind when it comes to this particular topic is that roughly 3.19% of Americans, they actually have a delinquency rate on their credit cards, meaning they don't pay their credit cards and they accrue fee after fee after fee, and it just builds up over time. And only about 33% of Americans tend to pay off their credit cards each month, which means the other 66% of Americans are accruing interest on whatever they're purchasing. And when they're purchasing alcohol, they're adding that interest on top of the alcohol itself, any other kind of fees associated with it within their state. So it really adds up very quickly. And another thing to keep in mind when it comes to delinquency on credit cards, those individuals find themselves in a situation where not only can they no longer use credit cards because their credit is no longer good, but now their only way to buy certain things is through buy now, pay later, which is very expensive in many areas. So you're really finding those people get into a situation where they cannot dig themselves out of that. They're sitting there wondering, how did I get here? Why do I have so many fees? How am I going to pay off all this debt? And it really builds up very fast. When it comes to small purchases like alcohol, it really just causes the situation to exacerbate, and it makes it so much harder for people when it doesn't have to be. My fourth point on this particular topic is really that alcohol is addictive, and that's something that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at financing alcohol. According to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, roughly 6.5% of women and about 8.5% of men are actually addicted to alcohol. That means they have a physical dependency on alcohol due to excessive drinking, which it makes it very hard for those people to avoid buying the product when they go to any store. These people are often finding themselves financing alcohol, and they're ending up in a cycle where they are struggling to not only get out of the debt and the crippling costs of everything, but they're also struggling with their physical health, their mental health, and other factors. Addiction is a very hard thing to get over, and when it comes to alcohol addiction in particular, it can be particularly challenging for people because it's readily available, they can get it anywhere, and it's legal as long as you're an adult. Now, the rates of alcohol abuse and alcoholism do not account for a lot of the problems associated with financing alcohol. The rate of buying alcohol on buy now, pay later at 22% and credit cards at 30%, those don't account for just the addiction to alcohol, because the number of people addicted to alcohol is far lower than the number of people financing it. However, those numbers really show that there's a more complex financial problem going on. There's a more complicated financial situation that is impacting people's decision making. And alcohol is only one example of how this situation can get out of control. And it's only one aspect of the financial challenges. But it's important to note that if so many people are financing alcohol, it really suggests that there's a problem with finances that is becoming very complicated and very complex. Now, my fifth point when it comes to the topic of financing alcohol is really that it's keeping you poor. Now, alcohol is something that people do spend on excessively. Overconsumption of alcohol is a big problem, not only when it comes to the potential for addiction, but also when it comes to your financial stability. There are more costs associated with alcohol use and alcohol abuse than people even realize. Not only are there the costs associated with buying the alcohol itself and any potential interest accrued, but there's also the cost of overspending while you are using alcohol. Now, it is estimated that roughly 17% of Americans will buy items when they are drunk, meaning they're purchasing things when they're not in a state of mind to really think through those purchases. And the numbers are kind of staggering. Roughly $300 per person. And the amount on an annual basis across the country in America, it's $14 billion. $14 billion annually spent from alcohol-related costs. Now, these are things that people are buying when they're drunk. Maybe they're buying food items. Maybe they're buying products like clothing, purses, shoes, anything else that catches their interest. But because alcohol lowers your inhibitions, you're more likely to overspend while you are drinking. And that's just another financial factor that may be causing problems in your life due to using alcohol or financing alcohol or drinking regularly. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind when it comes to alcohol is that if you are not careful, it can really quickly become a financial problem. Now, I do not necessarily think you have to avoid it in all situations, but you should use caution and you should make sure that you're not buying items when you are drinking. And if you are financing alcohol, it is time to stop financing it and start working on getting your situation under control. Your finances are in your hands, and if you are not taking measures to really control your spending and get your finances in order, you can be potentially ruining your future and causing a lot of problems in your present. So rather than financing alcohol, look at ways to pay off your debt. Try to build up an emergency fund and maybe put alcohol and parties and other types of things related to that on the back burner while you are building up your wealth. It makes it easier for you to focus on your finances, and it really makes it easier for you to get your situation under control. If you're financing alcohol, it's time to take a step back and reevaluate where you're spending and how you can improve your financial situation. That's it for today's video. If you like the video, do subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.